Hi, I'm Joanne, and welcome to the Animal Communication Business Series. 8 episodes exploring the real journey from practitioner to sustainable business owner. If you are new here, this series is for professional animal communicators who are already doing the work. You have clients, you charge for sessions, you're visible, but you want your practice to become more intentional, sustainable, and profitable. Across the last 6 episodes, Bex and I have been exploring the mindset shifts, practical structures, and business foundations that help turn meaningful work into something that can truly support your life. But today, we're doing something a little different because learning the concepts is one thing, seeing them applied in real life is another. So, for these final 2 episodes, we're inviting professional animal communicators into the conversation to talk honestly about where they are in their business right now, what's working, where they feel stuck, and what they would most like support with if they had a business expert in front of them. My hope is that by listening to these conversations, you'll begin to recognize parts of your own journey in theirs. Because often the questions we think are unique to us are shared by many others navigating the same path. As always, I'm joined by business architect Becs McNeill. Hi, Bex.
Hello. I can't believe we're
Hello.
here at the end.
Yes, I know. Ep.7. Now, what would you like listeners to gain from today's episode?
Well, I think the fact that we've got Dawn and Deb with us is brilliant because it's going to give people that little bit of real life information. We've been talking about lots of theory and it's going to be the practice side of things, I think, for the next couple of episodes. So really, no matter where you are in your business, whether you haven't started yet or you've been doing it for years, I want people to realize that often what happens is that the next step forward is usually simpler than you think. What holds people back isn't generally a lack of ability or knowledge. It's more about having some clarity about what to do next and then what to do next. And it's in that kind of order. So I'm hoping that by the end of today, people will have been able to look at their own situation and perhaps identify just one thing, not all the things, but just that one thing that if they worked on that and sorted that out, it would make everything else feel a whole lot better.
Yeah. I always feel better when I listen to you, Bex. I should listen to you more often.
Oh, can you tell my children
Completely different situation.
that?
So let me go to Dawn and Deb. Thank you for being here. I'm really grateful you were both willing to come into this conversation and allow us to explore your business journeys openly, because I know so many listeners will likely hear parts of themselves in what you share. But before we move into the business side of things with Bex, I'd love for our listeners to get to know you both a little first. So let me go to you, Dawn. Can you tell us about how your animal communication journey began? What first drew you into this work?
Thank you. It's lovely to be here, by the way. So thank you for the opportunity. So I started working holistically, for want of a phrase, with animals back in 2006. So 20 years ago now. My main base was animal aromatics, self-selection basis, energy healing, and communication with animals as well at that time. Majority of the work involved visits, so there was no online communications going on. It was an actual visit to, whether that be a yard where there were horses or people's homes for dogs. And as I was working with essential oils and self-selection, I was very much aware that I knew what the animal was thinking and feeling, and actually I would feel as well where they got pain. And, sometimes I'd say, is there something wrong with your dog's back leg? And they'd go, how do you know that? And I'd be like, I don't know, but I just do. Running forward, in 2018, I came across the lovely Joanne. I think prior to the workshop, because I attended one of your workshops, I had a communication with you with my 2 dogs and cats at the time, and you totally blew me away. Like, I was like, this is just amazing. And I think the realization at that time for me was that I need to do this because I need to develop what I know I can do. And to have somebody as expert as Joanne to guide me on that journey felt passionate and important to me. I've recently joined Joanne's Deep Speak membership, which I'm loving. Everybody on your course is just so lovely, and to have people from all over the globe and get to know these people and share the ups and the similarities has just been tremendous. And I have just rejoined to do the next 12 months with you. I stopped actually practicing professionally a couple of years ago, but my passion and my ambition going forward is to start up again, but more based around animal communication as the solid basis for my business. So I hope that explains where I am at the moment.
It does very much, Dawn, because in one of the episodes, Bex and I came to a realization that animal communication, we almost stumble into the practice because of just the way we discover, like yourself, you discover your love of animals. So we kind of call it the accidental path into the professional side. So what was it that made you, was it like a conscious decision that you wanted to become a professional, i.e. charging the services? I know you said you had a break and you're going to come back in, but
Yeah.
at what point was it that you said, do you know what, because it's a conscious act to charge. So can you recall what it was?
I think genuinely it's the passion for helping animals and their guardians. And because personally I care so deeply about animals and their guardians, and it feels so right because the animals are so giving, um with their thoughts and their feelings, and how they can help themselves, how they can help the guardians. Why would I not want to? Really, it's just, like I say, it's my passion. So
Mm.
yeah, it's where I want
Really,
to head.
it really comes across
Oh,
that your passion, which is gorgeous.
thank
And
you.
you can reach more people when you're
Yeah.
practicing professional. So that's great. And yes, I love the fact that you're in my membership, and with all the different teachers and training and mentors that you've had throughout your years of practice, what was it about what I offer or just the way that I present my animal communication? What was it that drew you to that?
I've only ever come to you as far as animal communication is concerned. I felt your passion as well, and you're just so genuine and so knowing. Personally, I wouldn't look to go anywhere else except for you because I feel so comfortable with you as well. And you're not restrictive in the way that you provide us with the information and the confidence to do animal communication.
Well, that's beautifully kind of identified, because that shows me our shared values. And so much about the work that we do is about the values and the ethics. It might be different, to other types of work, because they would have techniques, for example, techniques and tools and a particular set of skills. Whereas what you've just described there is very much to my heart, where we focus on concepts and values and ethics and looking within in terms of how we practice externally. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you.
Let's go to Deb. Now, I'm also fascinated. We've been working together for many years as well. So let's go to you, Deb, and tell us a little about your journey, how animal communication came into your life.
Okay, so thank you for having me here. This is very exciting to be included. So, as a child, I just always felt more comfortable with animals than I did people. I never really knew why. I just knew that's the way it was. In fact, when people would ask me, what did I want to be when I grow up? I always said Dr. Doolittle because I thought that would be the best thing in the world to be able to communicate with the animals. But it was a large number of years later that I was fostering greyhounds, and through one of the people I knew through the Greyhound organization, she had gone to an event and she came back all excited about there was an animal communicator and she could talk to my dog. And I just kind of perked up and I was like, wait, what's her name? What's her name? I need to know all about this. I never knew animal communication was a, and so I reached out. Within a month, I went to a 2-day seminar and I was just hooked. And ever since then, I've been taking classes. And then I think it's been several years now, Joanne, that we met. And, the Deep Speak group has been amazing. I love how, we all come together with our different levels, right? We all come together with different personalities, ideas, all the things. And we all fit, right? And so that has been amazing for me. And I've even taken some of your more focused classes that have been so helpful to me in my business. And I guess I didn't really think about that I was going to do this as a business. I did this because I just wanted to have that connection with animals, to be able to ask them questions, to be able to understand their viewpoint on things. And then when I started talking about it to other people that I was learning this, and they're like, you know, talk to my cat, talk to my horse, come please talk to them. And when I found there was such a need for this and people wanting to have that closeness, that understanding with their pets, I said, okay, let me take a look at this. And so that's when, after doing a lot of sort of free practice sessions, that's when I decided, oh, I could actually charge for this. Was getting ready to retire from my corporate job. And I thought this could be a little extra income, to pay for Roxy's events or, to pay for travel, those extra things that I wanted to be able to do.
I think for me with you, Deb, it's like one thing just led to the other. When you talk about animal communication, even though you've been doing this for 7 years, that joy just shines through. And I also was with you around the time when you were about to retire from your corporate job and you were like so excited about how you can now really have time for animal communication. I think you've been busier than you've ever been since you've been retired. So this is really great to have you here to hear about your story, which I feel is, different with Dawn's in terms of your way into the animal communication, but also that you're both in a different place with regards to how you want to move forward. What I've always admired about you, Eb, is that you're very independent and capable in your own professional business, yet you're open to continuing to learn, continuing not just to learn, because in the membership, what I notice about you is you give. You give to other members. So it's lovely already hearing, how different each journey is, even though you both arrived at, in a similar place in terms of building a professional practice around work you feel passionate about. So the reason that you're both here today is because whilst you're each doing this work professionally, there are naturally areas in business where you may feel stuck, unclear, or ready for your next stage of growth. And part of what we wanted to do in these final episodes is show listeners what it can look like to have an honest conversation with someone like Becs when you're seeking business support. So I'll go to you again first, Dawn. Now, you're not trading at the moment, but you plan to once you've completed, the 12 months with the membership with me, but you're also have embarked on a pet bereavement counsel diploma.
Yeah.
Right. Now, before meeting today, you shared with me areas that you'd like to explore. So I'm going to say what those three are, and then we're going to focus on one for Bex to work with you on. So you've talked about you'd like some ideas of how to get known and best platforms to be on. You'd be interested to explore about planning and creating a website. And you're also interested about what type of people that you can target and explain what you do. So if you were to choose the one area you'd like Bex to help you unpack today, which one would it be?
I think it would be number one, which was the ideas of how to get known and best platforms to use. The reasoning behind that is because when I launch the business, for want of a phrase, I'm going to be looking to do it globally rather than going in my area visit. So it's going to be very different. So any help would be great.
And that's a great advantage with animal communication work because, maybe people who are not familiar with animal communication might think that we do our work with the animal present, and there are communicators who do that. But we actually can communicate with animals using photos. Some communicators, they don't use photos, they just use name and gender of the animal. So we can reach globally through, the internet. So let's go to you, Deb. Now, you describe your business as steady. You do a lot of readings at fairs, and you also have steady monthly Zoom clients for the one-to-one. And before meeting today, you also shared with me areas you'd like to explore. So I'm going to go through them, and then you can tell me which one you'd like Bex to talk to you about. So the first one is, what is the simplest way to grow my business without making it feel more overwhelming or time consuming? Second one, how can I create a clearer path from the fair visitors and email subscribers into paid sessions, classes, and mentorship? And the third one is, what recurring offers or passive income streams would fit my style and audience? So which one would you like Bex to look at with you today?
I think I'd like to go with number 2. How can I create a clearer path from fair visitors and email subscribers into paid sessions, classes, or mentorships?
It's going to be a juicy, juicy, juicy conversation. So without further ado, Bex, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanking you. So let's start with Dawn then. So, best platforms. If only there was one best platform, Dawn, my life would be so much easier. But you're a perfect example of where lots of people will find themselves and think that they have to wait until they are open, in inverted commas, to actually start their journey of being visible and telling people about what you're doing. So if you wait until you're ready to take clients before you start showing up in places, you're going to be adding months onto the runway of securing clients, essentially. I would absolutely say to you now to start talking about everything that you're learning and your passion and the things that you're already doing and thinking about, just to start telling people that you're here and what you do and why it's important to you. So, explain to them why it is you're deepening your skills, why it is that you're interested in bereavement counselling and doing that qualification, talking to people about, how you came into doing what you're doing, because the story that you've just told us is brilliant and people love that kind of thing. And that's how they're going to get to know you in the first place. So finding people to connect with on that journey is really making sure that you're clear on who it is that you want to connect to. Because when you say we're going global, that's amazing, but that's a lot of people, right? So narrowing it down to who you want to speak to and where they are to start with. Because when we know who those people are, we can start being in the places that they are. Because if I said to you, go and talk to them on LinkedIn, and they're not hanging out on LinkedIn, you're wasting your time and your effort. So we need to find out where those people already are and where they're engaging with people and what they're up to and what they're engaging with. So you're better off to do one platform and do it really, really well than, say, be across all of them and try spinning loads and loads and loads of plates.
Okay.
So the kind of people that you want to work with, have you got any of those already in your sort of existing networks and the
Yeah.
people that you talk to?
I have, yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. So I would be asking them, where do they hang out online? Where do they get their information from? Where do they consume information or resources? So that you can start to see where they are, where they're spending their time, where they're spending their money. Because it may well be that there are other borrowed audiences out there that you can go and be a part of. Instead of building yours just one by one, you can go and, like, for example, with Joanne, she already has an audience. You would be working in somebody else's audience with them potentially, because they've got products and services that complement yours, but you're working together potentially. So there's lots of ways that you can do it, but it is focusing on the who. So are you clear at the moment as to who it is that you do want to work with, or are you still kind of working that through?
I'm still working it through because I seem to be drawn to animals in spirit, which is why I've been led to, I think, pet bereavement counselling, because it's just so needed as well. So I've been sort of like juggling, trying to balance, things like, so like the pet bereavement counsellor. You could probably advertise that in vets, but they would probably hoo-ha the animal communication.
Right.
And then holistic vets would open arms take both, if that makes sense. And then you've got, the people that are genuinely interested in understanding their animals and will comfort animal communication. And then combined with that, to help the guardians that have lost their animals to communicate with those animals, but help the guardian with the bereavement and the grief process as well. So that's what I'm sort of juggling with at the moment. It's like, are they two things? How can I combine them?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we spoke about this. I can't remember what episode it was in now, Joanne, forgive me. But I talk a lot about life cycles with clients. So it might be worth, and we can have a sort of chat about this afterwards, but doing some work on your client life cycle. So looking at kind of where they start and what's the journey that they go on. So if you're going to be looking at somebody who perhaps is in vets and they've got some, animals that are perhaps not very well or what have you, that would be perhaps, say, level one of that client, because they're at that journey where the animal is perhaps not feeling very well and you want to have that kind of communication. Then you'd go through working with them while that animal isn't very well. Then when it gets to bereavement services, they're then at the next stage of that journey. Do you see how a life cycle with somebody could be working with you? So ideally, what we're not doing is going, do this thing over here for these people, do this thing over here for these people, but actually it is all interlinked. So you're not having to spend your time trying to be 5 different things with 5 different hats on.
That makes perfect sense.
But what will change is your messaging to those people. They're still the same person.
Yeah.
But the messaging is slightly different because they're at different stages of their journey and their life cycle with you. So I often say you can't talk butterfly language to caterpillar people. So when somebody is literally starting out on a journey, whether they're trying to get skills or knowledge or whatever it is, they're not going to be having the same conversations with you that somebody who is advanced is going to have. So the same applies within that life cycle.
Okay.
So I think if we can look at your ideal client, the kind of process and the ways that they could potentially be working with you over that life cycle, and then where are the places that you would need to be in order for them to come across you in each of those areas. Some people it will be vets, some people it will be even online communities, rather, they're hanging out talking about their pets. Others, it will be through that bereavement services. So there will be different places, but they will all lead to the same place, because once you get somebody into your business, you're going to take them through that life cycle. You're not just taking them and dropping them off somewhere else. Joanne, have you found that in terms of like online platforms, is there sort of places where animal lovers tend to congregate when they're online? Are there specific communities or specific social media platforms?
There are challenges with Facebook groups. There's loads of pet loss Facebook groups. I think if I was kind of thinking about it around what Dawn is looking for, I would be more specific in terms of like, what does that group actually offer? Because you can look at a group that has thousands and thousands and thousands of members, but when you actually look at the posts, a lot of it is coming in and just sharing how they're feeling, but not really looking for support. I think if you were going to look at where these people are hanging around with, you also want to look that they are looking for support, that they're looking for something that they can seek a way of moving forward with.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many groups where you can just come in, say what you want to say, and then some groups are very protective around unsolicited advice in a way that that's not really kind of where you want to be. However, it's great, rich learning ground. So I would join those groups. Like I love what you said there, Bex, because it's absolutely true, Dawn. Bex, because Dawn is thinking, and I've been there before, where it's like, I'll wait until A, I got my qualification, B, until I've kind of completed this, and then I'll start. But you're right, because it takes 6 to 8 months,
Yeah.
even up to a year, for people to start to kind of, because they were looking for that consistency.
Yeah.
You know, we imagine like we qualified, it's like, ta-da, I'm here. And then there's silence. So actually now is the right time. And now is the time to, I would say, join these groups, but more from a research perspective. What are people posting about? What are they most struggling with? What can't they get over? The way they phrase it, are they looking for help? Because if the majority of the posts aren't really about looking for support or advice, if they're not even asking for it, then no point you coming in and going, yeah, this is what I do.
There are people everywhere that you could
Mm.
help, Dawn, but it's being in front of the people, the right people at the right time. And so making sure that they're ready for something, they need the help. You can certainly use it for finding out what the language is, what that kind of life cycle looks like. But you want the people that want a solution. They're not just processing verbally.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
perfect sense.
but the more places that you are in the first instance helps you to kind of get you out there. Then you can start to hone it down and go, actually, this group's really, really good, or this platform's very good. So experiment with it and be curious. And I think to start with, don't put too much pressure on yourself in terms of going, it's got to lead to a certain outcome. I
Yeah.
think that visibility piece of just being there and people knowing who you are and knowing what it is that you can help people with is really important, because we're often not as visible as we think we should be, because we feel like we're being too visible, when in actual fact the reality is you're not being anywhere near visible enough when it comes to getting out there, because people are busy, their feeds are just running so very, very quickly. They mean to do something and then they forget. So keeping that consistency is key to, like Joanne said, making sure that people can see that you are still there, you are still the person that is, that they want to talk to, because you're going to be dealing with people in a particularly vulnerable time of their life. And so trust is a massive, massive issue for people. They don't want to just be, taken for a ride by somebody. So anybody that you've worked with, making sure that you're collecting those testimonials, that you're sharing those stories of where you've helped people, and any of that kind of stuff that helps to build that credibility so that people understand that you are who you say you are. You're not just some fly by night that doesn't know what they're talking about. But also pick the places where you feel comfortable showing up, because if you don't feel comfortable, you're not going to do it. So If it means that you've got to stand up in front of thousands of people on a webinar and that's not who you are and not what you want to do, you don't have to build your business in that way. So let's look at the people that you're actually wanting to work with. Let's do a bit of research and find out where they are hanging out, where the good places are, and then we can start to narrow it right down. Because unfortunately, there's not one best place. There's a best place for you, and we need to work out and find out where that is.
Perfect. That just makes so much sense.
Good.
It's clarified a lot for me. And interestingly enough, I only posted it once on my older page that I was going to be doing the pet bereavement course, and I had somebody message me within half an hour. So I know that there are people out there, but like you say, it's finding that life cycle.
Yeah. And I'm sure that the majority actually of the people that come to you initially will be people that know you. There'll be people that are already in your networks.
Yeah.
They just don't know that you're going to be doing this thing that they need right now. So
Yeah.
the sooner you start talking about it, the sooner they can book in with you, the sooner they can then refer somebody else to you. And that will be how it builds, I would imagine, rather than you completely going out to a cold audience and going, here I am, come and book me, and suddenly being inundated. Invariably, it's your warm audience and people that already know, like, and trust you that are going to buy from you straight off.
Thank you. It's been really helpful. Thank you. Helps clarify a lot. So thank you.
And I'm really glad, Beck, that you've said it, announced it, that there is not one best platform, because you will see when you look on the social media where certain business coach will go, Instagram's the best place, or Facebook is the best place, or, LinkedIn is the best place. But that's because they've made those platforms their expertise. It doesn't mean it is the best one for you. So I'm so glad that you've cleared that up.
Yeah. And the thing is wherever you end up being and parking your stall will be the right one for you, because you feel comfortable there, that you're getting engagement and you're getting people from there. That doesn't mean to say that there aren't lots of opportunities over on all the other platforms, but that will be where somebody else will hang out and do their work. So there's more than enough business out there for everybody. It's just finding what works for you so that you can do it over and over and over again and it's sustainable for you. Because if you're constantly having to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, and people think that they've got to, sing and dance on TikTok to get business, and you just don't, if that's not who you are, it's not going to work for your business, because you're trying to be somebody that you're not. So always that authentic you over performance is going to win you business every time.
Thank you.
Although if you want to dance and sing on TikTok, I
Dancing on
can't
Tik-
follow you, Dawn.
I mean, we could do it once, maybe. Let's not make a career.
Okay, let's not.
Thank you.
Well, let's go to Deb. Beck's all yours.
Okay. So, Deb, let me remember what we're talking about. We're talking about that pathway, aren't we? From collecting people at fairs onto your subscription list and that kind of thing. So talk to me about what happens at the moment. If you're at a fair, you've got lots of people interested in what you're doing. Talk me through what actually happens now.
Okay. Well, I go to fairs and offer 15-minute readings. And so the people will sign up for a time slot, and they have the option to put their email address, so they will be added to my email list. Then, we do the readings there. And then I have the email addresses that I add into my system. And then that way, when I'm sending out, I try to send out like a monthly newsletter. Mostly this is what Roxy and I have been up to. And then what are the next fairs coming up where they can find me? What things do I have coming up?
So first of all, well done for capturing people at fairs. Lots of people think that when they're doing stuff in real life, that doesn't apply to sort of capturing email addresses and that kind of thing. So doing that in the first instance is brilliant. So I have a framework that I talk people through called the Superfan Cycle. And to keep it really simple, it's A, B, C, D. And those are the 4 stages of the sales process. So first of all, we have to attract people, which is what you're doing at the fair in the first instance. You're attracting them, got their attention, and then you're capturing their email address. So that then takes us on to the B, which is build the relationship, because we can't just be telling people that they can buy from us all the time. So we've got to build in some kind of relationship at some point, whether that's via email or it's via WhatsApp or Messenger or however you like to communicate with those people. The C then stands for convert, because there's no point getting people onto our list if we're then not going to convert them into clients at some stage and get them to pay us. And the D is for deliver, and that's where they have paid us, we then deliver, and then they go back around the cycle, but they miss out the attract bit because we already know them. They just come straight back into the B, where we carry on building that relationship with them until they're ready to convert again. And looking at it in that kind of little cycle means that we can see which parts of it are working or where there's bottlenecks or things that aren't quite working. So clearly you're getting the attract bit right, and you're getting the D bit right because you're attracting people, and when you've got them, you're delivering them. But in betweeny, we need to work out what's happening to those people. So unless they're either talking to you at the fair and they're meeting you for the first time, or you're delivering because they're doing something, they're kind of not falling through a complete hole, but they're not perhaps being as useful to you as they possibly could be. So all we need to do is think about, how can we build that relationship and bring them closer to you so that we speed up that process? So yes, monthly newsletter about what you and Roxy are up to, but it also needs to be about them. What do they need to hear from you that is going to compel them to take the next step? Okay. It's always got to be a reason for them to subscribe to you, a reason for them to open your email and read it, a reason for them to click that link and find out a bit more, or a reason for them to convert because there's something that they really want to do. So we've got to tap into their desires, find out what they want to know. Maybe they want to ask you some questions that they would love to hear that you could answer in your email series. Just ways to build that conversation and build that relationship with them. Does that feel like it would be useful for you to build into what you're doing, Deb, or would it be too much like stuff going on?
That actually sounds really interesting because, the email that I send out, I don't ever ask them questions. I never really say, sort of, what are you wanting to know about? And I think that's a really different kind of approach. And I like that. I think maybe people will, be interested in, how do I say it? They would like the fact that I'm interested in what do they.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So imagine these conversations. I always sort of liken people's email lists as a party or a dinner party. And if you're stuck next to somebody who only talks about themselves and broadcasts at you, it's not a very fulfilling conversation, and you don't necessarily feel like you're building a relationship or any rapport with that person. So the danger with social media and email marketing is that it's a broadcast mechanism. And it may be at some point, Deb, because you did actually mention, recurring income and passive income and those kind of things. It may be that you want to sort of shimmy some of those people into a community where there can be more two-way conversations rather than it just being about that email list. So it's just understanding them. What do they want to hear? What's going to develop that relationship further so that when you are ready to sell to them, or you've got an offer that you want to send out to them, they're more likely to take it because they know more about you and they want to spend more time with you. It's very easy to kind of just email people when you've got something to sell to them. I liken this to some members of my family. I never hear from them unless they want something. Whereas if you are regularly in touch with somebody, then when they ask you to do them a favor, or they ask you to sign up to something, or they ask you to click a button, you're more likely to do it. So I think there's some work that we can do there in terms of varying perhaps what goes out. Doesn't mean any more work, because that monthly newsletter could be split down into small manageable chunks but with some calls to action in them that get people to take the next step.
I mean, that sounds really great. And I like the idea too of, rather than a monthly newsletter, breaking it down into like the 4 chunks or whatever, that they're kind of hearing from me more often, but in a different sort of way where I'm wanting them to talk about themselves.
Does it take you a long time to put that newsletter together?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not really. It's always just kind of been, a short section about kind of what's going on, the time of year, things to think about, and then listing the fairs where I'm going to be. Yeah.
Okay. I think we've definitely got some room where we could be, again, a bit like we were saying with Dawn, is let people know what you're learning and what you're excited about at the moment, because people very much buy your energy when you're excited about something. When you were talking to us earlier about what you do and how you came to it, and your face lights up and it's a completely different conversation than when you're sort of just saying, oh, this is where I'm going to be. If you fancy coming along, you want to go, come on, I'm excited about this. Come and join me. So if we can get some of that into it, even if it's only just a couple of lines in an email, because, we're all busy. We don't always get the chance to read everything, and just break it down into those more manageable chunks, lots of energy, and asking them to actually do the thing that you want them to do.
Love that. Really helpful.
As you're talking, it's like, so many ideas. These guys know what I'm like. And in a funny way, that's what Bex and I were chatting about as a result of these series, because we're looking at how can we combine our way of supporting animal communicators. For me, I do always have lots of ideas. I believe that I know the animal communication community pretty well in terms of just my observation of who's out there, who's doing what's their strategy, and really avoiding same old, because there's a lot of that. And particularly, how can you be you? How can you almost like bring out the you that love what you do, and that's going to make you stand out. So that's one of the things that Bex and I was talking about, but just want to kind of say here that because I know Deb's newsletter and I received them, and I think, Deb, you come from that background where I see it with other practitioners where they do hold events, and they brought up almost like because you call it a newsletter, it's like a bulletin. I only write to you because you also don't want to intrude into people's inboxes. You're kind of very, very, considerate. So to you, you would only write if there was something to announce, like I have a fair, or I've got this course running, or I've got this, or Roxy's been doing this. So it feels very much like newsies. And that's why it's called a newsletter. So I wondered whether it would help if you didn't call it a newsletter anymore, but just maybe call it a letter, because it feels more personal, So maybe change that word. But what's really changed for my conversion, I would say mailing lists, definitely. So I draw everybody to my social media, but it's always to also take them to my mailing list. But what you're saying, Bex, is like when Deb talks about animal communication, as in how she entered it, it's like the light shines out, and you're good on video, Deb. That's what we've discovered too. So I wonder, in your news or your letter to your subscribers, is giving them a link they can click to a 5-minute video, because there's something about getting our subscribers into the habit of clicking, isn't it? Of tapping on links, because that's action. And then you can see if they're taking action. One of the things that I noticed a lot, because email can be like a really funny relationship, because more often than not, you're like, is anyone there? Is anyone bothering reading this? I mean, you can see the open rates and you can see the click. You're not going to get that instant gratification, because something about replying to the email it's like takes more of an energy or an effort. But what I've discovered recently is when I've shared a YouTube link or when I've shared an article on my Substack, they comment on Substack because it's formatted in a way that it's like social media comment thing. So it's kind of more user friendly. And same with YouTube. It's like they watch the video and you can comment on YouTube. So they don't tend to reply to my email, but they will leave a comment on Substack. They will leave a comment on YouTube. Those platforms make it easier, but it's coming from my email. All those years of like, is anybody gonna talk back to me through email? I'm finding like if I give them things to click, does that? Yeah.
Yeah. And asking them, reply to me, tell me what you think about
Yes.
such and such. What was your experience with this? And try and make it more conversational wherever possible, because conversations are what convert every
Yeah.
time. The other thing is, if you can, with these clicks and the things that you're sending out, use it as a testing ground to see who's interested in what, because then that helps you to get the right message to the right people at the right time. So if you've got some people that are interested in a particular location and you're going to be at a fair, it's no point sending somebody who's on the other side of the world information about that if they're not going to be in that location. So wherever possible, we're tailoring the information to the people, because we're being bombarded all the time with so much information that if I know that every time I get something from Deb, it's on the point, it's about what I'm interested in, I'm there, I'm ready to go. And it's, entertaining and educating, and I'm going to learn something, or I'm going to enjoy it because there's a story or whatever involved in it. So it's got to be about them, even though it's about you, if that makes sense. Everyone, unfortunately, out there is always thinking, what's in it for me? Why should I? Who cares? And so we've got to get under the skin of our people. So really understanding our audiences, really understanding who they are, at what stage they're at, what they want, what they're thinking, what they're dreaming about, what they're searching for. When we start doing that and we understand them, it makes everything so much easier. I promise.
Yeah. Well, we can listen to you all day, Bex. But the good news is Bex does offer a discovery call. So if you wanted to connect with Bex and, follow on with the conversation so that she can have her beady eyes on, your business plan, or maybe no plan, but no plan is
We
fine
make
too.
a plan.
But yeah, they can come to you with, basically you go to Bex because you're feeling confused or you're messed up or you just think I feel stuck or I got too many ideas and I don't know which one to focus on. All of it is something that Bex can help clarify. So if you're all happy to, we can bring this conversation to a close for now. I'm sure there's going to be more conversations as time goes on. And what I hope this episode has shown you is that business growth rarely comes from having every answer before you begin. It comes from being willing to pause, look honestly at where you are, and ask for support where clarity is needed. What Dawn and Deb have shared today will likely resonate with many of you listening, because no matter what stage of business you're at, there will always be another layer to refine, rethink, or rebuild. And that's part of the journey. So if hearing this conversation has helped you reflect on your own business and where you may need support, you'll find links below to connect further with both myself and Bex. And in our final episode, we continue this conversation as we explore a different set of business questions and challenges, because no two business journeys look exactly the same. And sometimes hearing different perspectives is what helps your own path become clearer. I'll see you in episode 8.